Students, second semester, MA English choice-based students. And today is the fifth day of online contact program. And so far, we have dealt with all the five papers. And today I'm taking this novel, Jane Eyre, written by Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte's sister. So remember, we have studied yesterday the play by Louis Pirandello, Six Characters in Search of an Author. And after that, we have studied Farnell and John Keats' Ode to Autumn. And then today, I'm teaching you a very interesting novel, a novel which gave a reputation and the fame to Charlotte Bronte. Charlotte Bronte, she's a Victorian novelist and she's a sister of Emily Bronte. Okay, and hope the voice is clear, the visibility is also fine. Charlotte Bronte's novel, that is Jane Eyre, this is the novel. I advise you, all of you, to read this novel much before you write your examination, because what we have provided, it is just a kind of notes, a study material, which will help for your examination. But I advise you to read this novel, that's Jane Eyre, written by the Charlotte Bronte. Charlotte Bronte, she's a sister of Emily Bronte. So these are the two writers who are generally called very popular writers in the Victorian literature. And today we are here, Charlotte Bronte's, Jane Eyre. Charlotte Bronte, a well-known writer, English novelist of the earlier part of the 19th century, and here, uh, Jane Eyre was widely read in the 19th century until recently. Jane Eyre did have a significant place. So, in the entire history of English literature, Jane Eyre's, this Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre has a very significant the place in the history of English literature. So much before I get into the novel, much before I teach this novel, I must tell you, uh, when it is a Victorian literature, it is always very crucial to know about the Victorian era, the Victorian period and Victorian era, how this era helps the writers and how the writers are influenced by this particular period. So we have to know about this Victorian period. So what is this all about? So the long period of Queen Victoria, she ruled the British country during our period. We call it as a Victorian period, and where the during that time this text was written by our writer, that's Charlotte Bronte. He's lived. So this is an era, the age. This era was influenced for a lot of material affluence changes, a lot of political awakening, a lot of social unrest, a lot of scientific development took place during the Victorian period. So because the development of the society, in a way, it results in every piece of text that a writer writes. It is one of the characteristic features of the age that while it evoked feelings of warmth, administrations in the art of many. So that was a administration condition where the lot of political changes took place during the Victorian time. So Charlotte Bronte belonged to the early Victorian age. It was the age of great literary output. So this was an age the where many writers come up with their writings. And for your information, the Victorian period, there are only few writers we come across as a women writer. Only the male writer who are popularized, they're the one who are there in the limelight, who writes a novel. But whereas in the Victorian time, the only very few less women writers were there. That is another feature. For example, we have George Eliot and Jane Austen. She's a 19th century writer, and we have Charlotte Bronte, and only few writers we come across. So, the Victorian age in English literature is remarkable for the development of the novel. So, the form of English genre, the novel, it developed during this Victorian time. For example, the great writers like Charles Dickens, the W.M. the Thackeray, and George Eliot, George Meredith, Thomas Hardy, Mrs. Gaskell, Anthony Trollope, the Bronte sister, or these people, they appear in the highest rank of English literary canon, literary field. So that is a small introduction about the entire novel, and here there is another important some introductory remarks I must say about the writer. That is this novel, Jane Eyre's. I mean Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. It is written in a first-person narrative. It is considered as a semi-autobiographical. So the autobiographical detail the writer is giving in this entire novel. So I told you it is a semi-autobiographical. She documents her personal life, what has happened in her life story. So, coming back to the gist of the novel. What is the gist of the novel? See, the Jane Eyre, it tells the story of a Jane, a women character, and she was a young orphan girl, and who grows up in her aunt's household. I told you she was an orphan. She was there in their aunt's house, and the entire novel captures her life in this, her aunts. So she was treated very badly at home and sent away to the cruel boarding school, and she was treated very badly. She was an orphan. After the death of her uncle, Mr. Reeds, Mr. Reed promised his wife, Mrs. Reeds, to take care of, you know, uh, Jane Eyre. Because so once he died, she had a lot of the problematic childhood life in the novel. So determined to earn her own living, she becomes a governess. So from the childhood, she had a lot of problem. She was ill treated, and she went to lowered school. She got education. After that, she has become a governess, and in Thornfield, and is drawn to the master of house, that is Mr. Rochester. There she met Mr. Rochester, and there the love develops. So the entire story, that is the story of Jane Eyre, the novel, it talks about a women character, the Jane Eyre, who had a very problem childhood life, and after that she decided to take her own life into the better place, and only through education. She got education at lower school, and after that, she became a governess, and then she fell in love with Mr. Rochester. And in the fragment of the novel, we come to know that she marries Mr. Rochester. And this is the story about the entire novel. And now let me come back to how this novel has written. What are there are different stages in the novel. So which are the stages that we have to understand? For example, the novel, if you divide the novel into 5 sections, it has 5 distinct stages. First, Jane's childhood at Gateshead Hall. So this is the first phase of her life of the Jane Eyre. One is Jane's childhood at Gateshead Hall, and where she is emotionally and physically abused by her aunt and cousins. She was emotionally and physically abused by her own aunt and cousins. And after that, we have another second phase of her life of Jane Eyre. That is, our education at the lowered school, and where she makes a friend with the many students, especially there is one close friend of her, Jane Eyre. That is, we have Helen Burns. Helen Burns is the closest friend of Jane Eyre. So she made a friendship only in the lowered school, and where she gains friends and role models, but suffers the privation and oppression. And because the entire lower institution, it's a very strict institution, the where the strict gospel, the kind of a very strict rules of the gospel of the lower school institution, the made Jane Eyre very sick and miserable. But despite, she withstood, and she got a good education. After that, the second stage of her life is that she worked as a governess at Thornfield Hall. So this is the second stage. The first is, the okay. And see, the many students are listening, but one student has been sending messages. The voice is not audible because of probably it's happening in your own system. You just rejoin again. But other people, I think the voice is clear. The students are listening, attending. Okay, and then so the first stage is Jane's childhood. The second stage is Jane's school at lowered school, and the third phase is she worked as a governess at Thornfield Hall, and where she fell in love with a mysterious employer called Edward Fairfax. Rochester. So that is the fourth, is a third stage, and the fourth stage is time in the moor, during which Ernest but the cold clergyman cousin John Rivers. She spent some times with the John Rivers, her cousin. That is a fourth phase. And the last ultimate stage is our reunion with the marriage to beloved Rochester. And the last stage, that how she rejoined with Mr. Rochester. So there are five stages, we come across in this entire, a novel. So this is one thing. So now let me introduce you the character first. Which are the characters? What are the characters that we come across in this novel first? After that, I'll get into the narrations of this novel. So number one. So Jane Eyre, she's the novel's narrator and a protagonist. She's the protagonist. She eventually becomes the second wife of Edward Rochester. So that we come across in the the fag end of the novel, like how she marries him. And another character, that is Mrs. Reed. She's an aunt of Jane Eyre, and she's the one who who always mistreats Jane Eyre. See, physically as well as mentally, she touches Jane Eyre. That you should always remember. That is her aunt, because she is the one who is taking care of Jane Eyre. And one day she lies to Mr. Brocklehurst about Jane's tendency to lie, preparing him to be severe with the Jane when she arrives to Brocklehurst Lower School. Because when she went to lower schools, the headmasters, there is one person, his name is Mr. the the Brocklehurst. For him, she lies to Mr. Brocklehurst. How Jane developed a tendency of telling lies. In fact, she was not a liar, but here deliberately Mrs. Reed, she tell lies to the Brocklehurst, the school clergy master, and who control the entire school. And this is one thing about Mrs. Reed's. And we have John Reed's and Eliza Reed and the Georgiana Reed. The three members are the cousins of Jane Eyre. And we have another important character, that is a Bessie Lee. Okay, Bessie Lee, she's a nurse at Gateshead Hall. It's a place where Mr. and Mrs. Reed's house is there, and where Jane Eyre was also spent her days at her cousin. Except Basili, all of them are mistreats her. But Basili, the nurse, she often treats Jane very kindly, and telling her stories and singing her songs. So here, the Basili, she is like a motherly figure. She's like a motherly figure, and she's the one, she always tells some songs, and tell her some tales, and and then she tells her good stories, and she nurtures her, and she takes care of her. And after that, we have another important character. There are many minor characters. I'm not telling all the characters. Probably once you read the novel, you understand other minor character. But now, coming back to I'm just only concentrating the important characters, because these characters are very significant in the development of the novel. So now you got an idea that Jane Eyre, the protagonist of the novel, the heroine of the novel, she had a very problematic. She did not have a very healthy a childhood life. She was an orphan. She has a lot of problems, tortured by the people, and then the question is whether her future life will be the best or not. How she transcends revelation, how she transcends her this kind of a poverty stricken, otherwise the kind of there is no substance, or there is no the better status of life. Probably she creates a good life by taking a good decision in her life. So this is a kind of a buildings roman in the sense where the protagonist starts a journey from adversity to prosperity, otherwise from ignorance to knowledge. So here she is very ignorant in the beginning, and she transcends herself to the knowledgeable person, because there is a there's a transition from evil to good. She's the main the driving source for her better life, and she's the she's the one who has to create her own life in a better way, and she did it. That's the reason why we call this novel as a buildings roman also. And another important character we have, it is Mr. the Brocklehurst. He's as I told you, he's a clergyman. He controls over the entire the lower school, and he always mistreats the entire students of the whole school. And he's a religious traditionalist, He was a very strict practitioner, and is very harsh, and and he was very hypocritical, and he was spending money of the institution for his lavish lifestyle. So that is a very bad tendency of Mr. Brocklehurst. And after that we have some character. We have good character, that's a Helen Burns. Helen Burns is a very good friend of Jane Eyre during the school days. And here uh, Jane, she's the best friend at Lowood School, and she refuses to hate those who abuse her, and the trust in God and prays for a peace one day in heaven. So always Helen Burns, she instilled the good qualities, a good thing about the Jane, and they are the very good friends one another. That we could come across in in the Jane Eyre novel. Another important character that we have here is Alice Fairfax. Alice Fairfax, she's an elderly woman, and she's a housekeeper in Thornfield Hall, and she was also distantly related to Mr. Rochester, because Mr. Rochester is the head of the Thornfield Hall. He's the master, and where Alice Fairfax, she's there as a housekeeper. She's there as a servant. She'll look after. There is one girl that is Adele. For Adele, they require a governess. So for which Jane Eyre, she applied for the post and she got as the governess. And now to whom Jane is a governess to Thornfield Hall. So Adele, she's a they say it's a she's a foster child of Mr. Rochester. Mr. Rochester, he's the one who brought to his house when Adele's mother, she left her, and he brought her to the house, and now Jane Eyre became a governess to Adele Warnes. And there is also rumor that Adele, she's a daughter of Mr. Rochester. And after that, she was Miss Rochester's mistress, and who that is Celine. After Celine, she left. Rochester. He brought that girl Adele, and she puts under the custody of Jane Eyre. So now this is one character, and then we have Edward Fairfax Rochester, and he is another important character because there is a love between Jane Eyre and Mr. Rochester, and how that is the big question. So that how the love develops and how love led to a platonic love and how they reconcile. And here there is one secret that Mr. Rochester does, that he never revealed that he had already married a woman called Bertha Mason. She's a madwoman. And at the time when he was marrying Jane Eyre, the secret was revealed by Bertha Mason's brother, that's a Richard Mason, and he stopped the marriage. And then Jane Eyre, she felt very sad about the incident, and she decided to go. And after some time, she met John Rivers, and eventually she had some connection, strong connection towards Mr. Rochester, and she comes back and she's got married again. So that is a story, but there is a lot of sweet turns in this novel. There is a lot of ups and downs in the life of both these characters, Jane Eyre and Edward Fairfax Rochester. So Rochester is the master of the Thornfield. He is a Byronic hero, the Byronic hero who always has this a lot of problems in his life, the ups and downs and all that. He has a face dark, strong, and he married Bertha Mason year before the novel begins. So much before the novel begins, um, he married her. And we have another important character, that is Richard Mason. He's the brother of the Bertha Mason, and he's a brother-in-law to Mr. Rochester. And I must tell something about the Bertha Mason. Bertha Mason, she's the first wife of Mr. Rochester. After their wedding, he comes to know that she is a madwoman. So deliberately, because our parents, they got married off to Mr. Rochester. Once he understood that, he understood she's more like a animal, wild animal, and eventually, in the fag end of the novel, this madwoman, she sets a fire to the Thornfield Hall. So, and then she died in that. And here, while trying to rescuing her, Mr. Rochester, he became blind, and he has become crippled, looking very ugly. So these are the important character. And there are other characters like Diana, Mary Rivers, and John Rivers. Now, so dear students, I introduce you the very important characters in the novel. So now let us get into the novel, how the novel takes the different script here, and how the novel turns. So now another important thing is that now getting back to the story. So now I'm giving you the entire novel story in a nutshell. ಈ ಕಾದಂಬರಿಯ ಒಂದು ಕಥೆಯನ್ನು ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. So then probably after that I'll get into much more a critical explanation. So the theme of the novel, that's a Jane Eyre, is the love of the pure and platonic. The whole novel is about the platonic love. Dear students, hope it's audible and you're able to follow it, so that there is no comment as such. And if it is clear, you can even say yes or no in the chat box that the voice is clear. But the rest of the students are just confirm that yes, the voice is very much clear. So the old Jane Eyre novel of Charlotte Bronte, it's a novel with the theme of platonic love. So let us see that how the theme of platonic love explore in the novel. So when the novel opens, this is the this is how the novel begins with. Yeah. See, when the Jane Eyre, the novel begins, the character, Jane Eyre, she's an orphan. She's an orphan in the care of her aunt. So she's under the custody of her aunt. Yes, fine. See, the voice is clear then. So Mrs. Reed, she's a cruelly treated and locked her in the room called Red Room. See, when the novel begins, we have this a very horrific and the terrific atmosphere. That is also one of the reason why do we call this novel as a gothic novel. If we call this novel as a gothic novel, some gothic feature, I told you, the haunted house and a blood chill and a very horrifying situations, horrifying incidents are all appear in the novel. So now, coming back to the story, Mrs. Reed, and she locked this Jane Eyre into the room called Red Room, where her uncle had died. That's Mr. Reed has died, and she was locked her in the room. And generally, she's just 10 years old when the novel opened, and when she was locked in the room, and she certainly get terrified. She's worried about it. That is also one of the reasons bringing these ghostly features in a novel. It is also features of gothic fiction. So Jane Eyre is an orphan girl and in the care of her aunt. And Mrs. Reed, her aunt, she's cruelly treated and locked her into the room where her uncle had died. Mrs. Cloyd, an apothecary, advises. There is one chemist. There is, the pharmacist. He advises Mrs. Reed, why don't you send her to a school? You do one thing, you better send her to a school so that she'll lead a life there. And then she decided to send her school. And much before she was sent to a school, there is one very important, development we could see. The development is that, see, this is what the novel begins longer eightful cousins. And you could also see that in the very beginning of the novel, we come to know about Jane's bold and revolutionary nature. She's not the girl who is very submissive. No, she's always withstand. She's always revert to the people, very straightforward. That is not appreciated by her own aunt. The aunt is so bad about her because this girl, she's never scared, she's never worried for anybody. She's very bold and dashing attitude. In the very beginning of the novel, we come to know about Jane's bold and revolutionary nature through the conversation between her and Mrs. Reed. Because I told you, Mrs. Reed always she complains about Jane Eyre that she's a liar, and for which, though she's not a liar, she's not a thief, and how she rewards. Once there is a conversation between Mrs. Reed and Jane Eyre in the beginning of the novel, and where this is the even now you are so fast. You are saying Jane Eyre is a feminist novel. That we could see in the last explanation of mine. Let us see. Let me complete whether it's a feminist novel or not. Probably you will answer, Jayashri. It is a feminist novel, and this we only see once I finish the text. Okay, in the beginning we can't even declare this is a feminist novel. Okay, there are different approaches in this novel, but this is purely a feminist novel. Okay, but you're too early to declare this. Okay, anyhow, you were very shrewd enough. See, look at that. This is the conversation between our aunt and our aunt and Jane Eyre. When the Mrs. Reed complains her as you're a liar or a deceitful, she replies, I am not deceitful. If I were, I should say I loved you. But I declared I don't love you, I dislike you, the worst of anybody. See, a girl, a child, a girl of 10 years scolding her aunt. Nanan Heke, why are you calling me as a deceitful? I am not. And I dislike you, the worst of anybody in the world except John Reed. Because John Reed is the one person who certainly he doesn't ill treat her. But I dislike you, the worst of anybody in the world except John Reed. And this book about the liar, you may give you a girl, Georgiana. You call your own girl, that's Jane Eyre's cousin. Georgiana is a liar, and it is she who tells lies and not hide. I'm not the one who tell lies. It is Georgiana, your daughter, who always tell lies. I'm glad you are no relationship of mine, because she's going to school. So she decided to, because she had tortured so much, she was brutalized by these people. As enough is enough, she wanted to, leave this house for all, for heaven's sake. And she tells these words she outburst with a lot of pain and agony because she's going to school. What happened here? I'm glad you're no relationship of mine. I will never call you aunt again. Will never call you aunt again as long as I will live. See, that is the very early age. It's the age of 10 years. The girl is so adamant and obstinate and very determined to say that I will never call you aunt again and I will never see you again. So is it quite quite natural, because at that age, having such a development, it is, you can just think about it. And I will never come to see you again. I am grown up. And if anyone asks me how I like you and how you treated me, I will say the very thought of you make me sick. I tell them, if somebody asks me how your aunt treated me, I tell them, she will always make me sick. I will say the very thought of you make me sick, and you have treated me with miserable cruelty. You have treated me with the cruelty. A girl is reverting that. And immediately, how dare you affirm that, Jane Eyre? How dare Mrs. Reed? How dare? Because it is the truth. And this is how, the Mr. Broccolos, the school teacher, I know that I told you he is the control over the lower school. He tells to Jane Eyre, how come you can call your aunt like this? So immediately he took her to lower school. He took her to the lower school, and now we come to know that in the lower school, how Jane's life is there. How does he spend her days over there? So Mrs. Reed to send her to school, and she went to the school. And Jane is sent to lower school, a charitable institution where she spends 8 years of her life. It is almost her prime youth. She's a childhood life, and she's spending her 8 years in the lower school. It's a very charitable institution. Okay, and her only friend, it is Helen Burns, and she's died very soon. Helen Burns, she dies very soon. That is, because she always, shares her, you know a good time with Helen Burns. Now, how the friendship developed between Jane Eyre and Helen Burns. Let us see a little bit about it. So while at Lowood School, Jane also befriends Helen Burns, who upholds a doctrine of Christian forgiveness and tolerance. Hudgi, the small girl, that is Ellen Burns, the almost contemporary of Jane Eyre. She has this. She upholds a doctrine of Christian forgiveness. She has a tendency to forgive people and to have a tolerance. Idina, she tells to Jane Eyre. So is it not quite natural? It is not. Is it quite natural? You have to say that, because having such a traits at that age, it's very much appreciated. So Ellen Burns, she was a very good girl, and she has some good traits which has been appreciated by people. How she upholds a doctrine of the Christian forgiveness and tolerance. And she always tells Jane Eyre to have a patience, to have the attitude of tolerance and the forgiveness. And Helen is constantly mistreated by Miss Scratchard, one of the more unpleasant teachers at the school. Unlike Jane Eyre, Helen, she's ill-treated by another teacher. Jane Eyre is also ill-treated because there is a strict rules by Mr. the Broccolist. Okay, after that, what happens? So, although Jane is unable to accept Helen's doctrine completely, but she completely doesn't agree whatever the principle that she has. because she doesn't agree all that. You can't keep forgiving people, you can't keep having a lot of endurance or tolerate. You have to withstand, you have to give reward to it at times. So although Jane is unable to accept Helen's doctrine completely, her passionate nature cannot allow her to endure mistreatment silently. Jane attempts to mirror Helen's patience and calmness, but always Jane witness Helen's very patience and the calmness in her own character. Because an orphan like Jane Eyre, when she lost the true love from the parents, when she does not have that compassionate love, when she didn't have that love, compassion, benevolence from her own benefactors, and immediately seeing a girl like Helen Burns and having a friendship and consoling like that quite often, and gives a sense of complacency, a ಸಮಾಧಾನವನ್ನ ಅವಳಿಗೆ ಅದು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. And very tragic took place because what happened during the spring, an outbreak of typhus fever ravages the school. So in the school, there is a typhus. It's developed, and there was an outbreak of typhus fever in the school. And there, Helen dies of consumption in Jane's arm, and gradually Helen dies of fever and in the hands of Jane Eyre. The first time Jane Eyre, she her her agony, it even increases a lot, because now she has no other friends. The death of the typhus alerts the benefactors at the school's terrible condition, and it is revealed that Mr. Brocklehurst has been embezzling school funds. At the same time, the many the people come to know that this man, that is a Mr. Brocklehurst, the hypocrite, he is dwindling the money. He is steal the money. He is misappropriating the money of the school fund in order to provide for his own luxurious life. So here is also Charlotte Bronte. She's criticizing this, the missionaries, especially the Mr. Brocklehurst, who was running this lowered school, and he was stealing the money and misappropriate the money, and he was completely ruining the funds in order to provide for his own luxurious life. After Mr. Brocklehurst's removal, after that he was removed from the entire administrators, and Jane's time at lower school spent happily, because Mr. Brocklehurst had been to once to take Jane Eyre in this aunt house. Remember? So here, when he was removed from the school, and Jane time at lower school is spent more happily, and she excels as a student for 6 years and as a teacher for 2. And there she spent almost 8 years in the school. And after that, despite security at Lowood, so she finds a kind of a security in her. She was quite secure in this Lowood school, but whereas she was not secure, she was insecure in Mr. and Mrs. Reed's house. Mr. Reed, her uncle, died, and now there she had this insecurity, and life was not so confirmed. She had a lot of problem. But now in this house, in this lower school, she has all the opportunities. One is that she got a good education, and she is getting the governess post, and now she's reaching a kind of a better. Yes, see, when you read the novel, you understand, how many chapters are there, that you can just, confirm yourself. Yes, there are, 38 chapters in the novel, and there are how many chapters? Let me check it. The whole novel has, yes, there are 36 chapters in a novel, and this novel can be read in at least a week. And I want you to read the novel because it's a classic text, very important text of the entire Victorian literature. You hope you're getting the connection, the narration of the story, and leave aside all this, whether the 38 chapters or whatever, leave it aside, and ask any pertinent questions, so that we will have a discussion further. Okay, like yesterday you had asked quite a few interesting questions. Okay, and what happens despite a security at Lowood school, Jane is dissatisfied and yearns for new adventures. That is not the life. There is even more. There is a lot to explore in life. She wanted to have a new adventures of life, and she accepted a position as a governess at Thornfield Hall. Thornfield Hall, and where Mr. Rochester is there. So our life has another distinct life story with the Mr. Rochester. Whatever so far we could come across, this is very small information. So after she went as a governess to a Thornfield Hall, when Mr. Rochester is there as a master, the owner, let us see how her life is develop, how the life turn into a different level. So Anne is responsible for teaching a French girl called Adele. I told Adele she's a they say she's a daughter of Mr. Rochester. After Mr. Rochester's lover, she left with some musical teacher, and she was taken custody under Mr. Rochester. And when she was searching for a governess, and she was appointed as a governess, and now she's taking care of Mr. Rochester's first child, or a daughter, a child. Okay, and in addition to Adele, the Jane spends much of her time at Thornfield with Mrs. Fairfax. There is another character, a very good character, who always takes care of Jane Eyre, that is Mrs. Fairfax, the elderly housekeeper who runs the estate during the master's absence. She is taking care of the entire control over the house, because sometimes Mr. Rochester, he is away of the house from the house. So Jane also begins to notice some mysterious happening around the Thornfield. ಆ ಥಾನ್ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವು ಮಿಸ್ಟೀರಿಯಸ್ ರಹಸ್ಯವಾದಂಥ ಘಟನೆಗಳಾಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಜೇನ್ ಐರ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಿಸ್ಟರ್ ರಾಚೆಸ್ಟರ್ ಹಿ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಮ್ಯಾರಿಡ್ ಅ ವುಮೆನ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಬೆರ್ತಾ ಮೇಸನ್, and she is a madwoman. That madwoman, she was locked in the attic, so that is called as a madwoman in the attic. So there she quite often screams, and she does a lot of noise. But for Jane Eyre, it seems to be very, 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 very strange. But nobody tells her the truth. They say some servant probably is screaming at something, probably some is going to happen, but they'll never reveal the secret. There is a one madwoman who had already married to Mr. Rochester, and Mr. Rochester, he put her in that attic, the madwoman in the attic. So that is a strange thing that Jane Eyre, she begins to notice some mysterious happenings around the Thornfield. It's happening in the Thornfield, including the master's constant absence from home and the demonic love. And this this girl, that is Bertha Mason, she always laughs in a demonic voice, like a devil's. And Jane hears emanating from the 30-story attic. And sometimes she hears it. I'm sorry, this is Jane hears emanating from the third-story attic. So this is the third floor, but the voice is always overheard, and she scares a lot about it. And after that, what happened? And We got into this story, and I was telling that now she has to take care of Adele. She's in the charge of Adele. She has to teach her the good practices and all that. So what happens here now? So this is what happened. So she takes charge of Adele, the illegitimate daughter of the master of Thornfield Hall. Okay, and Edward Rochester, a man of scanty courtesy and ill humor, he was very harsh. Mr. Rochester was a little harsh. Jane's first month at Thornfield Hall are calm and happy, but she's puzzled by the mysterious laugh of that comes from the upstairs every time night during night. So in the beginning of her life at the Thornfield, she was very happy, but gradually, she was getting scared of this, the very strange laughing in the third, story upstairs. Jane Eyre is a simple girl with no pretensions to charm, but she's a witty and virtuous. And she's not a pretentious, she's a very straightforward and a very witty and a virtuous girl. And Rochester, he's attracted towards her. So here he was a single man now, because he has a mad wife, and he locked her, and he's very much attracted by attracted towards her. That's Jane Eyre, and he's a moody and sometimes harsh. He's a very moody and sometimes harsh, but Jane is also attracted towards him and they fall in love. They attracted one another because both of them have set of standards. He's a very hard, and he's a very he's highly disciplined, and so does she's also highly disciplined, and they have some attraction towards one another, and they fell in love with each other. So by that, what happened? Jane leaves Thornfield for a month to see a dying aunt. So now Jane, she got a letter that he has to attend some you know aunt, and she wants to depart for some month. And what happened here? So I must tell something about the Rochester here. So after much waiting, Jane finally meets her employer, Edward Rochester, a brooding, detached man who seems to have a dark past. So Jane, she could sense that the Mr. Rochester has some past, a story which is completely, dark and very terrible. So here, although Mr. Rochester is not such a handsome in the traditional sense, Jane feels an immediate attraction to this person, and because he was quite intellectually good, because the way he talks, the way he can conduct, the way he treats her, it's a good conduct. So this man has an intellectual communion. One night, Jane saves Miss Rochester from a fire in his bedroom, which he blames on Graceful. One day, his mad woman, she set a fire in the house. And then that is the first time, Jane comes to know that yes, some kind of things are going to happen, but she has, but whether he will never reveal that why it's happening, and he puts the blame to Graceful, a servant who is taking care of Bertha Mason. So, by Grace, because Grace continues to work at Thornfield, Jane decides to Mr. Rochester has withheld some important information about the incident. So this Graceful, she's the servant who's taking care of the madwoman. She has been doing some strange things, you say. But why, despite of all that, you are keeping her? Because she doesn't know that this is done by Bertha Mason. She thinks still that it is, the Graceful has, he tells to her. It all lie to her. But Jane decides that Mr. Rochester has witnessed, he has withheld some important information about the incident. You're not telling some incident. No, you have to tell about all that. So now I told you that here Jane returns to Gates ahead here because she has to meet her no, aunt, and she went to see her dying aunt, Mrs. Reed, and Mrs. Reed still resents Jane and refuses to apologize for mistreating her as a child. She also admits that she lied to Jane's uncle, John Eyre, and told him that she had died during the typhus outbreak at the Lowell. In this study material, life is divided into four sections. That is a yes, that's correct. The Gateshead, the and Lowood School, Thornfield, and then Moore, and then Martin, and the Ferdin. Yes, that is the five section. Probably I in my because that is a four. They're the places, right? The Gateshead is a place, and the Lowood is a place, Thornfield is a place, and the Martin is a place, and Ferdin is a place. I made it the fifth phase because her reunion with the marriage to her beloved Rochester. And these are the four places where the real life incident took place. So I created an extra, while describing the story because, as I told you, these are the, sections. Remember, Jayashri, these are the section that has been dealt in the novel. But here I say there are different stages of her life. While teaching, I increase one and I said that it is her marriage with Rochester. That's it. That is the only difference. Okay, don't get into all that. Uh, okay. And coming back to here, I was telling this. What is that? And she, when she come back to see her aunt was so remorseful for mistreating this girl, and she told all that she has to forgive her, all that she has to forgive her, and she also admit that she lied to Jane, that her uncle, uh, you know, that she died during the typhus outbreak at the Lowhood. She also told the lie to her uncle. I mean, and she confesses for that. When Jane returns to Thornfield, Rochester tells her that she knows Mr. Ingram true motivation for marriage. There is another character called Miss Ingram. There is another lady who intends to get married Rochester, but Rochester knows that this girl she's going to get married only because of he is a property rich. That's the reason, but he doesn't marry her. But in the art of art, Mr. Rochester, he still loves Jane Eyre. So what happened on the return to the Thornfield? On the return to the Thornfield, the Rochester asks Jane to marry him, and she agrees. On the return to Thornfield, Rochester asks Jane to marry him and she agrees. And yes, when he proposes her, and she agrees to get married. But at the church, just before the ceremony, Jane learns of the existence of Mr. Rochester. So when he proposes her, and because they loved one another, when he proposes her, she decided to get marry him. And at the time of the marriage, at the church, just before the ceremony, Jane learns of the existence of Mrs. Rochester. She learns about the Mrs. Rochester, and Jane and the others meet his wife. Meet his wife. She's absolutely mad and is kept in seclusion and under restraint at Thornfield Hall. But this is the story. This is the story which is hidden by Mr. Rochester. It doesn't reveal that. So Jane and other meet his wife, and she's absolutely mad and is kept in seclusion. And so their marriage did not take place because Jane Eyre, she felt very bad about this incident. At least he should have told her much before he gets married. At the church, just before the ceremony, Jane learns of the existence of Mr. Rochester, Mrs. Rochester, because her brother, Mr. Rochester brother, the Bertha Mason's brother, that is a Richard Mason, he comes and he stopped the marriage. Because how you get married when his sister is still alive? And what happens immediately? Mr. Rochester, he took all of them, and they showed to he showed them the conditions of Bertha Mason, the madwoman. And he scolds even Richard Mason that this is the condition of your sister, and I spoiled my entire life, and you people did all that, and now I'm marrying her, marrying Jane Eyre, probably, to lead a better life, and now you are doing all this. And he scolds Richard Mason. But for this issue seems to be Jane Eyre a very, very a serious offense, because at least he should have told her the truth. But here the marriage did not take place, and Jane and others meet his wife, and she's absolutely mad and is kept in seclusion. She was absolutely mad and she kept in seclusion and under restraint at Thornfield Hall. And she's the source of crazed laughter at the midnight. Now Jane Eyre, she confirms that this is the lady who does that very scary, the crazed laughter at the midnight. And knowing the truth, Jane refuses to become Rochester's mistress. And she does not want to get married Jane Eyre. I mean, she doesn't want to get married Mr. Rochester, and she decided to leave the place, and she leaves Thornfield Hall secretly. That is the greater, the predicament. That is the greater, the kind of destruction to Mr. Rochester's life, because the first wife is that, and he's going to get married for the second, and this marriage stops. And Mr. Rochester, it is a big saddened news for him, and he always, in the world of Jane Eyre, he always remembers her, and she wanders across the moor. She wanders across the moor. She was also disappointed, and she was because she literally fell in love with him, and but that is the condition. And what happened? And one day, while going to, she was when she left Thornfield, and while she was going, she collapsed in a place where John Rivers, he discovers Jane a true identity. John Rivers comes, and he got the true identity of Jane, and he brings her news of the legacy which Mrs. Reed had mentioned, and reveals that the Rivers are her cousins. And Mr. John Rivers, another character, is introduced, and he tells to Jane that I am your cousin. Remember, and my mother, that's a Mrs. Reed, and she has left some legacy and some property on your name. And John Rivers, he has come as a the ray of hope in the life of Jane Eyre. John River, the cousin of he revealed the identity. He told her that I am your cousin, and about because she collapsed and she was completely shattered by the incident, and he took her and took to the house, and there, and his sister, they all took care of her, and this is what happened. So John Rivers wants to marry now. So, John River wants to marry Jane, and he intends to marry Jane, and he proposes now, because he taking care of her now. And John Rivers wants to marry Jane, and she's about to accept the proposal, and she's about to accept the proposal, but then she receives a powerful spiritual communication. John Rivers proposes to marry Jane, and she's about to accept the proposal. She is also ready to accept the proposal, but then she receives a spiritual communication. She receives a powerful spiritual communication from the Rochester, and she thinks that yes, Rochester, he's still loving me. Probably something had happened to him, kind of a telepathy, which telepathy, which gives a message. I mean, the kind of a spiritual communication. So something struck her, and she thinks that probably, Mr. Rochester, he's suffering, and she returns to Thornfield Hall. She has come back to Thornfield Hall to see Mr. Rochester, and she finds it burnt down by his mad wife, but who set fire to it and killed herself in the process. When she come back to see Thornfield, there, this person, that's Mr. Rochester, he has become blind. The whole face is damaged because there is a lot of burnt scars on his face. He was looking very ugly, and the moment Jane Eyre looks at him, and she's literally scared because he was almost burnt, and his face is damaged. Who did all that? His mad wife. Well, when he was sleeping, she sets a fire to the house, and she also died, and leaving this man in off burnt. And now Mr. Rochester had lost his eyesight and looking very terrible. At this condition, whether the question is, how far now Jane Eyre accept Mr. Rochester at this condition and looking very ugly at this condition, is it the question? Now you can tell me that, whether the Jane, does she accept to marry him now? Does she go back? Does she go back by looking at the conditions of the Mr. Rochester? No, I will not get married because you're looking dark and all that. No, whether the question is whether does she accept him or not. I mean, eventually we come to know that, this in this novel, the Jane Eyre, she never looked for the the physical beauty. For her, the inner beauty is important. What happened? In trying to save her, Rochester is badly injured and is blind and crippled. Now Jane marries him, and both are extremely happy. Even at that condition, she intends to get marry him. She decides to get him married, and they got married and extremely happy. And both the lovers, they reunite and rejoin. Jane supervises the upbringing and education of Adele. So Jane, she is supervising the upbringing of this Adele, the illegitimate daughter of Mr. Rochester, and she took care of the education. And Rochester's injuries are permanent, but he regains partial eyesight. His injuries, the damages that happened to his face, it is permanent. They are not going to cure, but his eyesight was, partially, he regains the eyesight and enough to be able to see his first son. And now they got a baby boy, and he got slight eyesight, and he looks at the baby, and he's very happy. So this is what happens in the life of these two people, and both Jane Eyre and Mr. Rochester. And so there is a last paragraph. This is the novel. There is one dialogue, that I have to read out from the text. The last line. When Jane, she reunites, when she comes back, Rochester says that he's overjoyed at her return, but fears that she will be repulsed by his condition. Am I hideous, Jane? He asks. Very, sir. You always were. You were. And she replies, now a humble man, Rochester, owes to live a pure life, and revealed that he is intensely pained for Jane ever since he left. So ever since he left, he was intensely pained a lot. He even called out her name in a despair one night. He was muttering the name again. And the very call that she heard from the Moore house, and heard a reply from miles away, signifying the connection between them. And Jane asserts herself as a financially independent and woman, and assures him of her love, declaring that she will never leave him. Rochester proposes again, and they got married, and they lived blissfully together in an old house in the woods called Ferdinand Manor. And the couple stay in touch with Adele, and Adele got a good education. And what happened? And his cousin, remember the John, he moves to India to accomplish his missionary goals, because Jane Eyre did not get him married, and she in fact she rejoined his lover, that is Mr. Rochester. So now, any question that you have, you can ask me now. Who is this Hemalata? Hemalata, I are saying, sir, not listen. No, but other people are listening very well. What's the problem? So all of us, all of them are listening very well, and the voice is clear, and the camera is on. Everything is fine. And dear student, and what happens? Uh, Probably some have network connection, and for which you have to make a very strong connection, and which is stable connection. So dear students, this is the story of Jane Eyre, the novel, and it is a very interesting novel. And now we can say that it is a feminist novel, because this is written in the women's point of view, how a woman started a journey, how the different stages traversed from the insecurity to a very secured life. In the beginning, she was not secured, and now at the fag end of the novel, her life is secured, and she's leading a happy life, with and here, so to tell you in a nutshell, Charlotte Bronte's the classic novel, the widely believed to be semi-autobiographical. It is autobiographical because so death of Alan Burns in school. It's an indications of death of Charlotte Bronte's own sister. That is the autobiographical tone is given. And Charlotte Bronte's classic novel, widely believed to be a semi autobiographical, is a powerful examination of the trials and tribulations. So there should not be a question, and examine or discuss the trials and tribulations of Jane Eyre in the novel. Then you have to write all the incident had happened in the life of the Jane Eyre. So this is the it's a powerful examination of the trials and tribulations of a woman making her way in a man's world, and she has become a good companion to Edward Rochester, and then trace the element of suspense and mystery in the novel. Okay, but the questions won't be asked in a way like element of suspense. There will be no, but rather we have a question called element of Gothic. There is one question: bring out the element of Gothic in the novel Jane Eyre. Then you have to write it. Okay. Which are the Gothic elements? For example, here you have remember the screaming voice of the Bertha Mason. That is also Gothic element. And see here, the descriptions of the red room, the where our uncle was dying. Remember, he was in a sick, and when he died, that room considered as when Jane Eyre was locked by her own aunt. She's worried, she's scared because she overhears some voice, and that is an element of Gothic fiction. So she was locked in a room, and the lot of horror and in the the Thornfield Hall, the frequent laughing of Bertha Mason. That's demonic laugh, devils. So that is a element of Gothic fiction, Gothic, and the nightmare, and then the savagery and the blood chill, haunted house. All these are element of mm, element of Gothic. So dear students, and I have dealt with this novel. I hope you got a very clear picture. Hope I believe that you understood the text. Yes, because if you look at the study material, you'll get some good questions for your exam point of view. Any question that you have, you can ask me now. Otherwise, I'll wind up the session. Okay. Yeah, this you should always remember. See, there is a line. When Mrs. Reed asks Jane to go out of the room, she, for the first time, gathers energies and strength to resort Mrs. Reed. She says that she is not deceitful and she does not love her. She dares to say that Mrs. Reed is the worst of anybody in the world except John Reed, and the cook, and the book about the liar she may give to her, the Georgiana, and all the other cousins. This she doesn't accept that if someone calls her as a liar, someone calls as a deceitful, because when she's not a deceitful, when she's not a then you understand how the kind of outward, I mean, the kind of outspoken she is, and she's very daring in her approach, and she's very much true to her nature. That we could see in the novel. So if there are no questions, I conclude the session. So we have done with today is the last class of mine, and dear students, I'm very glad to address this online platform is always I don't know how much it's conducive atmosphere gives to us, because due to some technical glitch, in between it happened. But anyhow, from 19 there'll be offline classes. I request you to attend the classes, all of you. And this is the class about Jane Eyre. So I believe that whichever the class I taught you so far, the novel, the poetry, drama, play that I've taught, hope you benefited by that. You understood it, and no, you have many questions, and the topics are there in your study material. The questions are there. You can just go through it and make use of my classroom analysis. I hope you understood the text and you prefer it for your examination. And good luck and do well. And I wish you all the best. Okay, then good luck to your next semester, third semester. So good luck to your examination. Some will attend the classes through online, offline. Some may not. And make sure that this class, is helps you for your examination point of view, and do the good job. Thank you, people. Good luck. I'm going to leave the session.
Yeah, good afternoon, dear students. Sorry, good morning, dear students. It's still 11:33. 11:33. See, I had not completed the poem "The Wasteland" in the last class. I was off the way mark. I was in part four, the fire sermon. Uh, you know, in the last class, one student, one fellow participant of this online class called Jayashri asked one important question. So whether there is this protagonist called Terentius. Terentius is the mute spectator. There is a myth. There is a myth beyond Terentius. Terentius is known in the Greek mythology as a man who was blind, who became blind. Terentius. In his young age, he saw the goddess Athena bathing. She was completely nude, and he accidentally saw her bathing, and she was taking bath, and he accidentally sees it, sorry, and she curses him and makes him blind. And there is a story behind that blindness. And this Athena's friend was none other than Terentius' mother. Terentius' mother was close friend to Athena, and Terentius' mother, in fact, asks Athena, the goddess, to forgive Terentius for his misconduct, and he was forgiven. At the same time, Athena, at the time of forgiving, also gives him one particular boon. That is, he gives her. So she gives her with prophecy telling art. He can tell the fortune. He can means he becomes what the fortune teller or the prophecy teller. At the same time, another interesting factor is there is a myth, there is a story beyond. Terentius. The story is that Terentius, when he was moving near the pond, he saw two sharks capitulating, means they were involved in the sexual intercourse. The two sharks, and he disturbs them. He disturbs those two sharks with a stick. Okay, and it's not audible. Yemalata. For Yemalata, it's not audible. I think I am audible for others. It's okay. I know. I was telling you, Jayesh, again, The answer is for Jayashree. Tiresias is the mute spectator. He is the one who has seen the history of mankind right from the age of Greeks till today. That is what Eliot feels, and he keeps him as the mute spectator for the fall of mankind. Tiresias is the hero. Hero is the mute spectator, and you can call him as the protagonist because Eliot discovered him in the classical sources of Sophocles and again Seneca, and also Ovid's work. Okay, Ovid's and Sophocles and Seneca's works. Again, Eliot has discovered that is an important character. Is an important character in all the classical works of Greek literature. And you can call him as the protagonist or the spokesman or even the seer of the wasteland. Seer, S-E-E, or seer of the wasteland. So because this character, the character Tiresias is the character that has experienced the life or the living of both the genders. As I was telling you, it disturbs the sexual union of two sharks, which were having sexual intercourse under the water. So while he was moving near a pond, he disturbs them with a stick. And he was cursed to be a woman. So he leads the life of a woman for almost 7 years. And later on, when he repeats the same mistake with the snakes, he was punished again and he was made into man. He was cursed again and he was made into a man. So this is very, very interesting. And this curse of Athena, and the curse of shark and the curse of snakes on Tiresias makes him blind, and he gets the boon of prophecy telling or predicting the future. And at the same time, he is the lucky guy to enjoy the living or the life of both the genders. And he knows what kind of pleasure do a woman get while having sex. So it's nothing but something to connected with sex, because he is aware the kind of pleasure both the man and woman will get while having sex. That's another important aspect. So, but when he repeats the same mistake, he was converted into a man. So Tiresias also appears in Oedipus Thebes and is associated with the sin, sexual violence, and punishment. Tiresias has existed across all the time and space as both epitome and the observer of mankind's suffering. As I told you, is the spokesman, protagonist, seer of the wasteland. He is the mute spectator of the fall of the man. At the same time, he epitomizes the experience of all men and women of mankind. He, though appears a mere spectator in the poem, he plays an important role, is an important personality who unites all the other characters. He can be called as the embodiment of modern mind, keen observer but powerless to act. So Tiresias is a keen observer. He has seen man's fall, the fall of man in different ages. There is a reference of Tiresias in all the works of Greek classical literature, and also his name is used in other later parts of the literary works, and that's the reason why Eliot feels that this is an important character which he can use he can use as a protagonist in the poem The Wasteland. In the poem The Wasteland. Very, very important factor. So at the same time, as I told you, this poem speaks about sexual degeneration, commercialization, and exploitation of commercialization, exploitation, and degeneration of sex. Very very important factor. And the entire poem is called as a social document. The poem is treated as a social document because it reflects what the European society of the again it reflects the European society, existing European society of the early part of 20th century, early part of 20th century. Very very important factor. You know, at the same time, this poem is also called as a religious. The entire poem is a religious poem because again Eliot uses religious images, religious characters. Again, the lines references he picks from Bible on several occasions is easy to understand. When it comes to Eliot is very much traditional and religious. He was a traditional and religious poet. That's the reason why you can see the presence of Christianity. He lies emphasis or importance to Christianity. So, Yemalata, I can't listen, sir, Andre. I'm sorry for it. If you have problem with your gadget, with your tool, okay, with your laptop or mobile phone, I can't help it out. Sorry, again, the thing is, most of the others are happy. I think like I'm audible for others. So what happens here? The fire sermon. So don't disturb me like posting such comments. If you are not if it is not audible, I can't tell. You might be having problem with your network. Okay, the fire sermon. The title is taken from the famous sermon of Buddha. As I told you, even in this section, in this section 3, again he uses the reference to again from various characters, characters of mythologies, to come to the conclusion where the world is shown burning with lust, passion, and hatredness, and thousand other evils, both in east and west. Again, lust is considered as the source of evil. So the religions, all the religions across the globe, across the world, condemn lust as the source of evil. So Eliot feels that spirituality is dead, and modern humanity knows only lust and no true love. So even while having sexual union or sexual while we are involved in the sexual act, again according to Eliot, people do not again consider it as a sacred spiritual act where you give life to another human being. So, but sex has become what? A mere temporary physical pleasure. It's no more a spiritual act. So that is another important thing which he criticizes. You look at the lines, hurry up, please, it's time. It's quite often repeated in the second section. In the second section, hurry up, please, it's time. So why does he use that line quite often in the second part? The reason is, again, he wants to present the mechanical lifestyle of modern people, modern native inhabitants of the modern world. That is why he uses that line quite often. So the sterile burning of sex lust is brought out by different sex experiences that you see through so many references from different sources. So uses those sources, those experiences from different sources to give a modern touch. For Eliot, again, the present is more important. At the same time, he also wants to convey that man has not learned anything from the past. Anything from the past. He connects present with the past. He connects modernity with the tradition. He connects modernity or advancement in science and technology with religion. He connects, so he feels that religion, religious issues, spirituality, ethics, values are also important. Traditions, customs are also important, according to Eliot. The spiritual degeneration of the 20th century is very well brought out. Yes, why does Eliot bring Buddha in section 3? So, Eliot, while writing Paradise, sorry, while writing The Wasteland, as I told you, he had read Upanishad, he had read Bhagavad Gita, he also read some sacred books of Buddhism. He looked towards East, so he was totally unhappy or disappointed with whatever the preachings or teachings that was available in the West. He wanted to know what exactly is there in the East, whether there is some salvation, whether there is some solution for the existing problems of the modern man in the East. So that is the reason why he looks towards East, and he has read the books of Buddhism, books of Hinduism, and he found solution for it. In fact, when he looked to the solution for the miserable condition of modern man, he found the solution in Hinduism. In Bhagavad Gita, he uses the lines of Upanishad at the end of the poem, part 5. At the end of the part 5, he ends the poem with Brihadaranyaka's Upanishad, the lines from Brihadaranyaka's Upanishad, that is Datta Dvaidam Damyata Shanti Shanti Shanti. So he ends the poem The Wasteland with Upanishad, the lines from Upanishad. So he looks towards East. In fact, he was also attracted towards Buddhism. That's the reason why he uses the reference from Buddhism. So the fire sermon, the title is taken from famous sermon of Lord Buddha. So he has also borrowed the lines from the poem To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell, metaphysical poet. So Eliot was immensely influenced by metaphysical poetry. Metaphysical poetry, and that's another important factor. So he fell in love with metaphysical poetry. So he has used the lines from To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell, and also joined John Davies' Parliament of again Beast, and also from French works, and also he also makes use of the names of some places like the hotel Cannon Street Hotel Metropole, a hotel located 60 kilometers south to London, famous for weekend rest, which is famous for gay sex. So Hotel Metropole is known for gay sex, located 60 kilometers south of London. That hotel is known for it's a meeting point of gays, gay sex. Again, there is a thing called queer literature. Literature which focuses on homosexuality, lesbians, about gay sex and all. There's a new concept called queer literature. QUEER. Okay, so it's another important aspect. But Eliot was not happy with gay sex or homosex or lesbian sex. He felt that it's like going against tradition, going against natural process. It's like being abnormal. No other animal, even in animal kingdom, you don't see a wild male tiger following another male tiger and having sex together. You don't see that happening with animals. But whereas man again is involved in gay sex also. Again, this is what he means by degeneration of sex. Degeneration of sex. Commercialization of sex means involving in sexual activity for the sake of money, for monetary benefits. So, exploitation of sex, commercialization of sex, means rape, involving in rape, sexual molestations, are called as what? Exploitation, sexual exploitations, which he criticizes, which he condemns, which he criticizes through so many other characters of uh, other characters, and also places meeting, yes, gay, gay, gay. Okay, you can see there. He also uses the names of Thebes, a Greek name of ancient Egyptian city, and also uses the lines from Oliver Goldsmith's book, Vicar of Wakefield. Okay, and also picks a few lines from Tempest, where the again you can where the Ariel speaks to again, you can see it uses the lines where the Ariel plays the music and songs. Okay, sings the song and plays the music. Ariel, the spirit, okay, the supernatural spirit from the play Tempest, he uses that this music crept by me upon the waters. Okay, you see, everything appears disjointed. Everything appears disjointed to give what? To give what? A unified, holistic meaning. To give a holistic meaning, he brings in so many, he uses so many different literary phrases, lines, quotations, okay, to help his cause. To help his cause. Okay, and the river sweats 269, 266 line, the river sweats, taken from Wagner's lines, a German lyricist and musician, and also down Greenwich Reach speaks of the changes that has took place on the banks of River Thames, with the explanation given by the Spencer in the past of Thames and to the present. So he finds the changes on the banks of River Thames, what Spencer has explained in his work on the Thames, again, work about Thames. So the same Thames has completely changed. Okay, he uses the names of Elizabeth and also the place called Leicester in England. Queen Elizabeth had love on Sir Robert, Earl of Leicester, and it was a failure. See, that's another important factor. Eliot doesn't spare anybody, including the Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth I had a relationship, had a love affair with Earl of Leicester, Leicester, line number 279. So Eliot criticizes even the Queen Elizabeth I because she was in love, though she was married, she was in love with Earl of Leicester, that is Sir Robert, and it was a failure. And it was a failure. Rather, it was a political tactic used, played by the Queen, used or played by the Queen Elizabeth. So that is what the history says. So it doesn't spare anybody. It doesn't spare anybody. And right from Queen Elizabeth to the typist. Okay. So Vilela Leila, Walala Leila. There is a line number 290, line number 29091. Okay. Famous merry making. Okay. Taken, and also he uses the Ivory Bound Me Richmond and Q taken those references he borrows from Dante's Divine Comedy. Okay, from Purgatory Part 5, line number 133. So, and also uses the the line burning, the line 308, taken from Buddhism. Translation, Buddhism in translation by Henry Clark. So he had read the works on Buddhism, translated works of Buddhism. Okay, so that's another interesting factor. Let us see what is there in fourth part, death by water. Very important aspect. In death by water, Phlebas and the Phoenician, a fortnight dead, forgot the cry of gulls and the deep sea swell, and the profit and loss. So here he speaks about water, which is symbolic of what? Fertility. Symbolic of fertility, which was used by Greeks. And in those days, Greeks, like we do here in India, we also drown the idols of gods. The idols of gods are drowned in the water, in the lakes, in the ponds, in the river. Like we drown Lord Ganesha during Ganesha Chaturthi, isn't it? So it's in the same way, Greeks during those days had this kind of practice of drowning the idols of gods in the river, to get what? To get fertility and to get rain. To get fertility and to get rain. So very, very important. So there this practice was there. Greeks used to drown the idols of gods in the rivers to acquire fertility. To acquire fertility in the rivers. And you can see there are references to journey to Emmaus. So journey to Emmaus, when Jesus Christ was traced, Jesus was seen on the third day of his crucifixion. Third day of his crucifixion is celebrated as Easter, isn't it? So crucifixion day is celebrated as Good Friday. Good Friday, and the third day of Jesus Christ's crucifixion is celebrated, or the death is celebrated as Easter. So Jesus was seen walking alone on the desert on the third day of his crucifixion. So again, he uses again the name of Phlebas from Phoenicia. Present, he also speaks about present decline of East Europe, collapse of civilization, where people of East Europe lost their faith in Jesus. Probably is referring to people living in Turkey. So people living in Turkey and other parts of the world, where they gradually lost other parts of Eastern Europe, where they gradually lost Turkey, Syria, where they gradually lost interest on Christianity, and later they switched over to Islam. Okay. In what the thunder said, another important factor is he uses the name of Gale pot, Gale, which is another important factor. The Gale pot was used by Jesus Christ during his last supper. During his last supper, Jesus Christ used it to have food, and the same pot was kept in a chapel, in a church. So what happens? The fisher king steals it and takes it to his kingdom. And what happens later on, when he takes that pot to his kingdom, the entire kingdom faces severe famine, and there was complete barrenness, dryness. There was no water, there was no rain. People of his kingdom who suffered due to what? Due to starvation, due to scarcity of water. And later, when he restored the pot in the same chapel, the fisher king and his kingdom received huge rain. This is the myth. This is the story that we read when it comes to the Gale pot and the fisher king. The mythology beyond Fisher King. So here, fifth part, what the thunder said, very, very important. He speaks of two gardens. Here again, he speaks about two gardens again. That is Golgotha, a garden of crucifixion place, which has been converted into a garden, and Gethsemane, Jesus for prayer. And this part is very, very important, mainly because this part mainly speaks of Jesus' love, suffering and how he was betrayed, imprisonment, how he was imprisoned, and how the hearing, judicial hearing took place, how it took place, and the punishment given through crucifixion and graveyard of Jesus. So you can see the graveyard of Jesus in Bethlehem, and these images are recalled by T.S. Eliot. So in the fourth part, and also journey to Emmaus, where the disciples of Jesus who felt being orphaned, and the suffering of at the suffering of at the suffering of Jesus or losing Jesus. So in line number 357, Eliot uses was actually experienced. This was actually experienced by Eliot when he visited Pichen province. Line number 357, drip, drop, drip, drop, 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 drop. So, till part 5, we just read about boredom, sterility, barrenness, okay, dryness, everything. But in fourth part, look at the title, What the Thunder Said. Thunder is very, very important. Thunder symbolizes what? Thunder symbolizes of arrival of rain. Rain means water. Water means fertility. Fertility means what? Greenery. Fertility means what? Revival. Revival of life. Revival of new life. So, very, very important. So, who is the third who walks always beside you? So, that line number 359, speaks about the travelers who moved towards South Pole felt one is more in the total number due to the fantasy. Due to the fantasy, the two followers or disciples met another traveler who tells them that it was the prophet who is referred in religious epics. The same prophet is now crucified. So he's speaking about Jesus Christ. So, what is that sound? I in the air. Again, that line he has borrowed from a German writer's work. The name of the writer is Hermann Haas in his Blick ins Chaos. The title of the book is Blick ins Chaos. Refers to it in 1917's Russian Revolution. The book speaks about Russian Revolution and aftermath incidents, that is leading Europe towards pathetic stagnation. So, again, as I told you, it speaks about the Gale myth, where the chapel perilous faces all the obstacles. Okay, chapel, and also the Fisher King, the Gale pot, and also the game of, again uses the reference, the name of the river Ganga. Ganga was sunken. 395. The name in the line 395. He speaks about the river Ganga, and also the word Himavant from India. From again Indian references. Symbolic, where again it's very, very important. The last part where he says, the remedy is possible. The remedy is possible for the modern wastelanders. What is that remedy? The promise of regeneration is very much there. It also makes promise. The poem also makes a promise. The poem does not end with a despair or with a gloomy note. With a gloomy note, the poem ends with a token of pessimism, with a glimpse of pessimism. So the future day, the future world would be fine only when man atones his mistakes. Only when man redeems for or regrets for his sin. So this part is very, very important. It also makes promise and prophecy. It goes beyond a mere diagnosis of the spiritual distemper of the age. The poem goes beyond the spiritual distemperments distemperaments, okay, distemperaments of the age, okay, distemperaments of the age, the picture of the picture of the contemporary wasteland, again, which it presents might be bleak and gloomy, but it does not end with a despair, it suggests that regeneration is possible. Regeneration is possible through suffering and penance. Man has sinned and he must atone to God for his sins through suffering. Through suffering. In the last section of the poem, the thunder is already heard, and the clouds have gathered. So clouds have gathered, and there is a hope of rain. Or rain means divine grace. Divine grace. Eliot brings together the wisdoms of east and the wisdoms of west, reunites the wisdom of east and west, and shows that spiritual regeneration can come if only we heed to the voice of if only we heed to the voice of the thunder. The voice of the thunder means the 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 divine grace. So voice of thunder is equivalent to divine grace. That's the reason why he ends the poem. So he ends the poem uh, with a call for universal peace. Universal peace. So why then he'll fit you Hieronymus mad again? So it's a Hieronymus. It's a, again that's reference. That reference he borrows from Spanish comedy. Spanish comedy again. Sorry, Spanish tragedy of Thomas Kyd. Thomas Kyd has written a book called again Spanish tragedy. He borrows it from that, and usually lessons of peace comes at the end. That is why again uses the lines from Upanishads, that is datta dayadvam damyata shanti shanti shanti, the peace which passeth understanding. The peace, the world requires peace, and there is that scope, there is this hope or scope for peace in the world. Only the thing is required, the only thing that is required is man has to regret or repent for the sins that he has committed, and he has to make some amendments in his attitude towards life, That's all about the wasteland. Something to be told about. Uh, 1 minute. Yeah, Jayashree also asked about the line called the line that is, I'll show you fear in the handful of dust. That line is borrowed from Bible Genesis 3 colon 3:19 from Bible Genesis. Again that line is used in the Bible. So the line where the God in that line, God is addressing Adam. So it is God who is telling this to God. I'll show you fear in the handful of dust. So what does it mean in the sweat? Why doesn't the poet translate the Sanskrit words in the section? No. He has not translated the Sanskrit words in this section. He has kept the second poem. Sorry, the poem ends with the Sanskrit words itself. Datta dvayadam dvayadam damyata shanti shanti shanti. Have you read the actual poem? He has not translated. He has used the exact words of Brihadaranyaka's Upanishad. Datta damyata dvayadam shanti shanti shanti. Okay, that's how. Madam, don't get misled. Sorry, misled. Okay, no, Datta Dvayadam Dhamyata, line number 401. 401. Shanti, Shanti, again the last line, Shanti, Shanti till 433. Uses again the lines from the lines of peace, he uses from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Okay. You had asked one question about the line. Why does he use the line again? The statement from Bible, the Genesis from Bible 3.3 colon 19 again, where Adam God speaks to Adam and advises him. At the time of creation, he advises Adam and tells him this way. I'll show you fear in the handful of dust. It means in the sweat of your what? The sweat of your shoulders. In the sweat of you. If in the sweat of you, in the sweat of you can eat the bread. Till though return to the ground, for out of it was though dust taken for dust then or unto the shall then return. So it means the meaning stands out to be for its sinister suggestions of death, morality, and the ultimate futility of all human endeavor. So that line means the sinister suggestions of death, morality, and the ultimate futility of human endeavor. Means whatever we do throughout our life, man has to suffer. Man has to suffer. He has to sweat a lot. He has to sweat a lot to meet the tragic ending. Ultimately, we have to die. We can find peace with death. So, dust symbolizes what? When do we meet dust? When do we eat dust? Only when we die. So, it's the eternal pursuit, struggle to meet what? Death. I'll show you fear in the handful of dust. It is God saying to Adam. Okay, the line is taken from Bible. So I'll show you fear. I refers to God. Show you fear in the handful of dust. It means man at the time of creation is destined or bound to face what? Death. If the poem as a whole seems to offer a vision of civilization as a pile of textual rubble, ruins with all the human achievement in literature, religion, and myth reduced to those fragments which the speaker has showed them. I will show you fear in the handful of dust. It is also a reference to, it also means human morality. We are all ultimately destined to return to nothing more than a handful of dust, a handful of ashes, a handful of ashes. That is the reason why in Hindu religion, when you are burned in the funeral pyre, so your ashes uh, are what drowned in the rivers. Usually in sangamas, where the three rivers unite. So and also they make sure that the ash again while burning when you burn a human body after its death, the body, the soul of human beings after the death merges or blends with the three major concepts of God's creation, that is fire, water, and the earth. The fire, water, and the earth. So, in Hindu mythology, ಅಗ್ನಿ ವಾಯು ಮತ್ತು ಮಣ್ಣಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಲೀನ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಆ ಹೆಣವನ್ನು ಸತ್ತಂಥ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಹೆಣವನ್ನು ಸುಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದರ ಒಂದು ಚಿತಾಭಸ್ಮ ದ ಆಶ್, ಸೊ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಶೋರ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ash is merged with submerged in the water, particularly in Trivedi Sangamas, where the three rivers join. They make sure that they drown the ash of that person in the Trivedi Sangamas. Okay, or even on the in the soil. Okay, and also the Agni. When it is the again, what's the function of Teresis in the poem? Madam, I told you the function of Teresis is the mute spectator. He is the onlooker. He is the protagonist, the spokesman of T.S. Eliot. He sees, he is the witness. He is the witness of man's change, means man remaining the same. Man through ages has remained the same, passed from the history, from the myths before Christ to the present modern day world. ಓಕೆ ಎಸ್ ಪಂಚಭೂತ ಪಂಚಭೂತದಲ್ಲಿ ಲೀನ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು ಅಗ್ನಿ ವಾಯು ನೀರು ಓಕೆ Jayashree, you have asked this question, the role of Tiresias in the poem. I have answered it long back. I don't know whether you were attentive or not. I told you he is the protagonist, the spokesman, mute spectator, seer, okay, the mute witness for the man's fall or decline through several ages. Through several ages. He is a mythological character who has the boon of predicting future. He is a mythological character who was made blind by the goddess Athena. He is the mythological character who experienced the life of both the genders due to the curse. Got it? So he is the protagonist, the mute spectator. If you permit me, shall I move on to the other text? What you have to do is, when you read the poem, you don't understand anything. It's like I told you, it's like broken piece of glass. You have to collect it and you have to arrange it in order. It's like a puzzle because in one line he juggles between past and the present. He juggles between the characters of the past and the present. He juggles between history and the present. He juggles between tradition, customs, and the modern life. He juggles between modernity and tradition. He juggles between Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism. He juggles between modern day character like the typist and also between a character like Cleopatra. He also gives you the religious references picking from Bible, from Buddhism, from Hinduism. So he borrows material from different sources, to come to the conclusion that this world will remain same if man doesn't change. So after this poem, I'll move on to another poem by Eliot, that is the Aloe Men. The Aloe Men. What do you mean by Aloe Men? So Aloe Men is also another interesting poem. It's the severest attack, greatest criticism. Criticism means he's criticizing the mankind. Again, Eliot. This poem is also a bit difficult to understand. So very, very interesting poem. The Aloe Man. This poem is a recast of some of the earlier poems of Eliot. Is a recast of earlier poems of the Eliot. Critics have come to the conclusion that this poem is the extension of the wasteland, which you could not join with the wasteland because it took time for him to complete this. I think this was published in the year 1925. This poem was published in 1925. 3 years later to the wasteland. That is the reason critics have come to the conclusion. by his conclusion that this poem is the extension of the wasteland, because the tone or the approach of Eliot is almost similar, like the wasteland. It was published separately. Initially, it was intended to be the part of the wasteland. As such, its theme is the same as that of the subject of human nature in this world, and the relationship of human beings with the world. Okay, the poet's theme as a reference to the gunpowder plot. So we'll come to that later. So we'll see what critics have to say about this. Elizabeth Drew, one critic, Elizabeth Drew, says, psychologically, the experience in the Olomen is even more despairing than that of the conclusion of the wasteland. In the wasteland, at least you have a ray of hope, a ray of hope. In what the thunder said, there is a ray of hope. There is a ray of hope. Gudugu, Sidilu. Thunder means Sidilu. Gudugu, Sidilu. Lightning means what? Minchu. So Gudugu Sidiling in the end lightning agate. So you get lightning from thunder. So after lightning you receive what? Rain. So rain means what? Fertility. Rain means what? Water. Water means what? Fertility. Fertility means what? Revival of new life. Isn't it? There at least there is a scope, or there is a ray of hope. But here in this poem, there is no hope at all. He feels that human beings again should not have any hope at all. Should not have any hope. We are all the modern people. We are all living in the postmodern world. The world after 1960s, the world after 1960s is termed as postmodern world. We are living in digitalized uh, again world where we cannot survive we cannot survive without smartphones. We are living in the era of artificial intelligence. Do we have prominence, do we give importance to ethics, values, or principles in life? No, not at all. So does it mean that man has changed his behavior or approach or attitude towards life? No, not at all. Because we are already in 2023. In another 2 years, this particular poem will see a century. Okay, a century. ಒಂದು ಶತಮಾನ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಈ ಪದ್ಯ ಬರೆದು. ಆದರೂ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಬದಲಾಗಿದ್ದಾನಾ? I'll come to that. Have patience, Jayashri. Have patience. What's the main theme of the poem? I'll come to that. Please have patience. So I'm just in introduction. I'm just giving you the introduction because I don't have enough time to complete the poem. So I have to again pick up the same text in the next hour. At 2 p.m. I'll be teaching the same text. Okay. So have patience, Jayashri. So coming to the points that I was discussing, it is the most negative. The Olomen is the most negative or the pessimistic poems of all the pessimistic poems. It is one of the pessimistic and most negative and pessimistic of all the poems of Eliot. That's one important point. The wasteland and Ash Wednesday as the hope and redemption. Pashyatapa mattu ashavada. There is scope for optimism, at least in the poems like the wasteland and Ash Wednesday. But here in this poem, the Olomen presents the picture of unmitigated, unmitigated horrors, horrors of modern life. Unmitigated, unresolved, which cannot be solved, which cannot be resolved. Unmitigated horrors of modern life. So the problems that you see existing in the modern world did happen in the past. But does that mean that man has changed himself? No, not at all. The sign of the sign of ray of hope is missing. The poem is gloomy and dark like death's other kingdom. Death's other kingdom. So Southam, another critic called Southam, makes makes a reference to the connection of this poem with Conrad's novel Heart of Darkness. You have that novel probably in fourth semester in 20th century literature. In fourth semester, you have that novel called Heart of Darkness, which was written by Joseph Conrad. Joseph Conrad in Art of Darkness has created a character called Kurtz, Captain Kurtz. Captain Kurtz is known for horror. Captain Kurtz is known for cruelty. Kurtz is known for human vices. Kurtz, Kurtz, Kurtz is known for human weaknesses. Captain Kurtz is known for human frailties or weaknesses. Captain Kurtz is known for greediness. Captain Kurtz is known for what? He is the representation of entire European civilization because his father is a Spanish, his mother is a German, and he lives and means his parents, his ancestors, his living condition, and his background has different Europe means has got connection with different European countries. That is why critics say that the entire Europe has contributed in making a character like Kurtz because he speaks English, he talks English, and his father is a Spanish, his mother is a French, and he has gone to Congo, to do business, to do trade, to on a mission to change the blacks, the lives of the blacks. But there, after reaching Congo, he becomes what? A beast. A beast. He kills the black native people for the sake of what? For the sake of ivory. For the sake of ivory. So, very, very important. So, again, Eliot uses the name of Mr. Kurtz. Mr. Kurtz. So, Mr. Kurtz is dead. So, what does it mean? Mr. Kurtz is dead. So, at the beginning of the poem, he uses the reference to the connection of the poem, with Conrad's novel, which is the story of a hollow man empty of faith, of personality, of moral strength of humanity. There, in the story in the novel of Joseph Conrad, I think it's time. What I'll do is I'll continue in the next class at 2 p.m. Is that okay? I'm just giving you the introduction on this poem. I'll continue in the next class. It's already 12:30. Is that okay? I need your response. It's already 12:30. Shall I wind up the class and continue it in the next hour? Probably not in the next hour. At 2 p.m. I have your class at 2 p.m. We'll meet again at 2 p.m. It's already 12:30. Madam will be waiting for you to engage the class. Let me exit from the class. Thank you one and all. Meet you again at 2 p.m.
Good afternoon, everyone. In this session, I am going to talk about Kalidasa's Shakuntala, which is prescribed for you under Block 1, 2.5, Hardcore 2.5, Comparative Drama 2. Hope I am audible. You can able to hear me. Okay. And the title of the text is Shakuntala by Kalidasa. And as we all know that what a great playwright Kalidasa is, and very little is known about Kalidasa, who is widely considered to be the greatest poet and playwright, and the dramatist who wrote in the classical Sanskrit language, the language of religion and high culture in ancient and medieval India. Got it. And this is all about the background of uh, Kalidasa, because I believe in, if you, we need to know something about the basic or something about the biographical details of the writer or the playwright, then only you can able to know. So Kalidasa is widely known as the greatest poet and playwright, and who wrote in the classical Sanskrit language. And what is the language? This was the language of religion and high culture in ancient and medieval India. So it is possible that that what he wrote under the patronage of the Gupta dynasty, and which ruled most of the Indian subcontinent during his lifetime. And he was probably a member of the Brahmin class, and the benediction in the prologues of his plays suggests that he was a particular devotee of the Lord Shiva and his consort Kali. So that's why Kali Dasa means servant of Kali. The recognition of Shakuntala, especially the title of the play Abhignana Shakuntala, is considered to be his masterpiece, and it is widely translated into so many languages in India. And but he also wrote two other plays, that Malavika and Agnimitra, and Urvashi one by uh, in English, as it is translated from the Sanskrit, that it is Urvashi one by Bela, as well as the other epic poems and other poetry. And Kalidasa's writings draw heavily from ancient Hindu text, and including the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, two vast Sanskrit epics filled with mythology and Hindu teachings. Hope you are following me. Any doubts or any problems are you facing? No, no. Yeah. And hope you all thorough with or familiar with the text what I am talking about. This the title of the play is Shakuntala, written by Kalidasa. Okay, this is about just what I can say. I just briefed the biographical details of the Kalidasa and how he was recognized as greatest playwright, not only a poet, and who wrote many important plays. But this play, especially what I am going to talk about, is the most memorable and remarkable play in the history of Indian drama or Indian drama and theatre. So this, as I told you that basically this play is written in Sanskrit language, the two classic Sanskrit language. Later, it got translated into many other regional languages. And regarding the historical context of Shakuntala, the story of Shakuntala originates in the Mahabharata. Okay, it's a Mahabharata. We all know that it's the greatest classic in the history of literature, especially Indian literature. Even it has been read and referred by other scholars across the globe. So, this play, Shakuntala, originates in the Mahabharata, a large collection of legendary and philosophical and religious material that dates at least as early as 400 BC. Sarvadamana, later called Bharata, is a legendary emperor, and that's why Bharata, it is named after this legendary king. And who Shakuntala and Dushyanta, both of them are the parents of Sarvadamana, later known as a Bharata, who ruled the Bharata Kanda. That's why the name, actually, the kingdom or the land which ruled by Bharata came to known as Bharata. So there are many other names like this is related to Mahabharata, which attained its final textual form and became pervasive in Indian literature and along with its culture around the time that Kalidasa lived in the 4th century BC. Okay, so the Gupta period, dating from approximately the mid third to the 5th century, is sometimes known as the Golden Age, right? Golden Age because of the tremendous cultural flowering across the Indian subcontinent during these centuries. So, with Shakuntala being a prominent literary example. Okay, this is just the historical background relating to this text because, as I told you, that every writer, every playwright, every poet, they will take something, some small theme from the classics or epics, then they will put it in their own view or according to their own vision, and they visualize the things, and this is what taken place in this case in this play also. Dushyanta Shakuntala episode is a small episode in the classic Mahabharata. So Kalidasa has picked that episode and made a wonderful play and established very well written play. And other, what are the other books related to Shakuntala? This everyone should know. The story of Shakuntala is a dramatic expansion of an episode in the first book in the massive Sanskrit epic Mahabharata, as I told you. So, because Kalidasa is considered to be occupy an equivalent position in classical Indian drama as Shakespeare in English dramas and English theatre, such plays as Shakespeare, all of you are familiar with As You Like It, King Lear, Midsummer Night's Dream, and Antony and Cleopatra, so many other things, which also provide interesting comparison to Shakuntala's theme. And basically, Shakuntala is a romantic comedy, not a comedy, romantic play. It's a play of because as it is built on the Sanskrit dramas, we consider there is a zona or there is a subsection in Sanskrit drama that is called a prakarana. And for this prakarana, so we have what what is important themes or what are the rasas or emotions in according to Indian arts and the classic or what we can say Indian writings for the theatre, we have 9 rasas, Navarasas. So among them, Shakuntala, the display is based on one of the rasas, that is Shringara rasa. So that's why this play is called as the romantic play. And the title of the full title of the play is, as we all know, that Abhignana Shakuntala, which means the recognition of Shakuntala. And when this was written between 4th and 5th century, and this is a well established classical play, and the setting of the play is the Himalayas foothills or the foothills of Himalayas. And regarding the important characters, we can say that to begin with Dushyanta, then Shakuntala, and even what's that? Uh, though there are many minor characters like Shakuntala's close friends Anasuya, Priyamvada, and even what we can say there are smaller minor characters like Kanwa, who actually, when we get introduced to Shakuntala, we come to know that Shakuntala is a foster child of whom? Kanva. Actually, she is the daughter of Menaka and Vishwamitra. We all know that. And what is the bad thing in this play? Durvasa's curse. Okay, so this play is written from the third person narrative. Okay, third person narrative has been employed by Kalidasa to tell us the story. Then what kind of a language we could finally find in this play? In this play, Kalidasa actually uses a classical Sanskrit play language, which is highly standard And later we now have so many so much translations available. Even in English there are many translations. So in this play Kalidasa actually employed some blend of languages, sometimes classical Sanskrit and even Prakrit, according to scholars on Kalidasa. And it is also related but relatively unsystematic collection of popular dialects, that is Sanskrit and Prakrit. Both of the languages were considered as the classically strong languages and very standard languages of those time. So Sanskrit is primarily spoken by the educated and upper class male people, especially male folk in the play. And Prakrit is spoken by the female characters or the lower class male folks in the play. Just imagine how, even while using the language, or what kind of a language some people or some class of people should use, so much kind of we could able to find a very what so much of discrimination, even using the languages of earlier times. And what is, we all know the summary of this play because you might have seen movie Kaviratna Kalidasa, and you know the, and you might have read this story, or you might have heard this story somewhere. But still it is my duty to tell you the summary of this play. Are you not able to see my, sorry, are you not able to hear my lecture today? Because somebody is messaging that they cannot listen, not audible. Am I not audible? Or still facing the same problem as we have been facing all these days? Anyone should respond. Yeah, you should. Those who don't listen to me, or if my voice is breaking as I am doing, please log out and log in. Okay, even I'm also doing the same all these days, because when you log out and log in again, you will get the connection connected. Okay, no problem, please do that. And try, please, everyone should log into the classes by using student link only. Don't use the faculty link, and use the student link. Then, or sometimes if you get, again, if the problem occurs again, you can see, you can do the same what I have been doing, log out and log in. Yeah, as I told you that this story is very similar to all of us. Sorry, not similar, we are familiar with the story, and we know the characters and what are the important characters in this play. But still it is my duty to tell you the plot line or plot of the play. As we all know that Dushyanta, he is a king in northern India, and he is presently, when the play opens, he is the ruler of Hastinapur. Okay, hope you are following me what I'm saying. He is, when the play opens, at presently he is ruling the kingdom or of Hastinapur. He is, the play sets back and forth to Kanvas ashrama and to Hastinapur, and sometimes because the Kanvas ashrama is situated on the foothills of Himalayas. And Dushyanta, he is a king in northern India, and he is racing along in his chariot when the play opens, and he was about to shoot a deer. And at that time what happens, he was literally chasing the deer which belongs to Kanvas ashram. And suddenly a forest dwelling ascetic, he wants him not to shoot, since that animal, that a deer is that deer belongs to the nearby hermitage of Kanva. And who is Kanva? He is a great sage. And the ascetic invites King Dushanta to take what they invite him to visit their ashram, or visit their Kanvas hermitage. And he openly what admits that, and he what I can say, with a warm heart he accepts their invitation of the ascetics. and he visits the Kanwa's hermitage, and which is under his royal protection. Then he explains that uh, what that ascetic who wants him who want him not to kill that deer, and he says that Kanwa, a great sage, is not at home and he is away from ashram, and but the sage daughter Shakuntala will receive the guests and she will take care of the guest whoever comes in his absence. So when the king enters the Kanwa's hermitage, he notices that Shakuntala and her two friends Anasuya and Priyamvada, they were watering the sacred trees, and he hides in the shadows of some tree and he just observed them, and instantly drawn to Shakuntala's beauty. When Dushyanta reveals his presence, a flustered Shakuntala is immediately attracted to Dushyanta. This is somewhat like love at first sight. So, though Shakuntala is modest and very shy and very timid, the king questions Shakuntala's friends about her and offers her his signet ring. That is Namamudra. Okay, the ring which has his name engraved on it. So before the king has to concoct a reason to what loaf around the city or go near the hermitage, he is asked to protect the ascetics from the evil spirits in Kanwa's absence. So he quickly dispels the demons and then overhears Shakuntala, who is desperately lovesick and who also feels to or wishes to meet him, and she confides her, and he could able to confide her feelings for him and to her friends as well as, and she also shares this what yesterday we were discussing in some other class. I don't know, I don't remember whether in your class or somebody else's class. uh, this is a long lasting disease, or everything is fair in love and war. This is the thing. As she is desperately lovesick, she shares this news with her close friends Anasuya and Priyamvada. So when Shakuntala recites a love poem, she is composed for whom what she is composed for Dushyanta, and he was actually he emerges from hiding and openly declares his love for her. And their mutual declaration, and we can able to find or we can notice that because of their mutual consent effectively constitutes a secret marriage that is called a Gandharva Vivaha. Before long, Shakuntala becomes conceived. And after Dushyanta is forced to leave to his capital Hastinapur, Shakuntala is so distracted and she is unintentionally offends Durvasa. And when she is deeply engrossed herself or immersed herself in thinking of Dushyanta and her what their time and about her fascination towards Dushyanta, Durvasa, a short-tempered sage, he enters and he visits the Kanva's hermitage. And unfortunately, Shakuntala does not notice him. Durvasa becomes very furious. He puts up his thinking of now, and he should forget her. Okay, because he curses her in such a way that she is ignoring my presence, even I called her thrice. So on whom she is thinking now, the fellow should forget Shakuntala. This is a curse he puts. And but when Priyamvada intercedes and he grants the signet sight of memento, and he just what he says that definitely I cannot take back that curse, but I can give you some what something which can lift the curse. What is that? At the present of signet ring, then that person will again recall or remember this girl. Then, after Kanva returns, he celebrates Shakuntala's good fortune and he sends her to join her husband Dushyanta, escorted by seers. Seers means other group of other sages or other assets who live in the same hermitage. So, and even this what I can say that farewell scene in that ashrama is also very beautifully explained by Shakuntala, and how not only people they cry for the what they cried to bid farewell to Shakuntala, because Shakuntala is such a loving woman and very caring woman and very what I can say, very honest, humble, and graceful lady. So not only the people who live in that Kanvas ashrama or Kanvas hermitage, they cry for her farewell, no, but also the nature or the flowers, fauna, and trees, they also feel so sad because of the part way or parting of this is the departure or departing scene is very important, and sometimes it may they may ask you for 5 marks in your examination sake. So in the capital, what was happening in the Hastinapur, when Dushanta receives word that a people or a group of people have arrived from Kanva's hermitage, they are on their way. So he is surprised and uneasy, and he doesn't know why this group of ascetics is visiting me. And do you know what is happening there? The Durvasa's curse on its full force, right? So that's why he doesn't recognize or recall why people from Kanva's hermitage are coming. So he feels uneasy, and to Shakuntala's grief, the baffled and defensive king, he denies having any connection with Shakuntala, because he doesn't know, because Durvasa has already cursed him, and that he should not remember Shakuntala. And when her friend had already told her that you should go along with this signet ring. Signet ring means the ring which has a nama mudra, which has the king's name engraved on it. But unfortunately, when Shakuntala wanted to show that signet ring as a reminder, she discovers that that ring is missing from her finger. So Dushanta relents and agrees to what he openly is that I don't have any connection with this lady, and I don't even remember that where I have met her ever in my life. So Dushanta somehow with a advice by his what minister, he agrees to what give a place to Shakuntala in his house, royal palace, until she gives birth to a child. So, but before he can do so, Shakuntala is spirited away to the celestial realm of or celestial realms by nymphs. And later, in the course of the play, then what happens? Soon after this scene, a poor fisherman discovers the king's signet ring in the belly of a fish. Even this play, the fish also has a name. What is that name? Rohita. Okay, the fish name is Rohita. And the poor fisherman, he discovers the king's signet ring in the belly of a fish, Rohita fish, and he is threatened with execution when he goes to sell it out. But he is let go with a reward after the king seeing the ring and remembering everything what had takes place in Kanva's hermitage between him and Shakuntala. And this incident corroborates his story and his past story. Then soon after, we can find another minor character, Sanumati. She is a nymph and a friend of Shakuntala's mother, Menaka, and she spies at the palace to find out why the spring festival has been cancelled. And she learns that the king, overwhelmed by depression and remorse over Shakuntala, and she has forbidden this. That's why he has forbidden the festival of spring in the kingdom. Then later, Dushanta and continues to obsess over the situation until Matali, he is the what god Indra's charioteer, and he appears at the palace, and he says that Lord Indra is in need of something, and he seeks your help to on an urgent mission to fight the demons in the Indraloka. Okay, so along with Matali, he also leaves for Indraloka. Then, after 6 years, again, after 6 long years, Dushyanta comes back to Earth. See how there was a connection between Earth and the heaven. This is only possible in a place like Kalidasa or some other mythological or classical play. But is it possible in real life, in actual life? No, no. Yeah. Hope I am audible. Yeah, no problem. Then hope you are listening what I am saying, and as you all familiar with this play, just I am brushing up your memory. Then, after 6 years, King Dushanta successfully vanquished the demons, been duly honored by La, and he comes back to Earth. Then, when Matali and the king tour the chariot, they descend to visit Maricha's hut. Okay, Maricha was also a great king, great sage like Kanwa. So, a celestial realm of the demigods. So, here the king is astonished to meet a little boy, a small boy who greatly resembles himself, Dushyanta. So, wears protective amulet only. This amulet has to be only by the boy or by his, or else if someone touches that amulet, it will become a serpent. And because when he picks up that amulet, will happen, and it remains as amulet, no. So the ascetic in that ashrama, they come to know that maybe the father of this child is this man itself, or maybe the king Dushanta. Then later he confirms that this boy is Sarvadamana, and he is indeed his own child or his own son, and the prophesied world ruler. Then Shakuntala enters, and though it takes her a moment to recognize the king, they are soon tearfully reunited. And after all facing so many hurdles and problems in their lives, they again, the couple or the lovers, they get united at the end of the scene, end of the play. So the three of them talk with Maricha, the sage, and what the greatest sage of that ashrama, and he explains Durvasa's curse. Who? Maricha, because he is aware of it, and he explains Durvasa's curse and telling the couple not to blame themselves or one another. Maricha confirms that Sarvadamana's destiny, and he is the prophesied king of India or Bharatakanda, and blesses the family, sending them home to live in Dushanta's court, and where his court situates Hastinapur. Then, after listening to the story, please don't write the summary of the story in your examination. You should analyze this play in from the critical point of view. Then you have to tell me what are the themes of this play. To begin with, the natural world, the spiritual, the what the connection between the nature or the natural world and the spiritual beauty. And as this play, Shakuntala, the greatest work by classical Indian playwright Kalidasa, which is perhaps the most renowned Sanskrit play, is very even now. If it, just think, even now, if we are reading the play, then just imagine the popularity of this play and the relevance of its play. So the setting is marked by the beauties of the forested Himalayan foothills, and where the young hermitage dwelling girl Shakuntala falls in love with the king Dushyanta. Where here Shakuntala is known for the spiritual beauty, and Dushyanta, he is the king of the natural world. So that how beautifully the playwright extends or connects the connection between these two, some poles apart, right? So as the action develops, Shakuntala and the king, they fall in love, and later being separated by a curse and ultimately reuniting at the end of the play. After years of grief filled waiting in a celestial hermitage, the play develops a connection between the external appearances and the deeper inner truths. Okay, and first, the natural world reflects the interior state of the main characters, And then similarly, the bodies of these characters, the physically, they manifest the condition of their hearts. So the natural world of the play reflects the human romantic desire, especially in Shakuntala's case, because her years of devotion to the hermitage trees have created such a strong bond between her and between the natural world. That's what I told you. The parting scene of Shakuntala from the Kanvasa hermitage is so heart touching, heart rending, where the whole natural world feels sad for her part, okay, parting from themselves. So Shakuntala's beloved jasmine tree, light of the forest, and whom she says that she would only forget to water, and she says, when I forget myself, definitely I'll forget you all. So this is a symbol of her own impending, I can say, the impending union with the King Dushyanta. So in a suggestive passage in the play, we can also find that the union of this tree and this jasmine has taken place as the most wonderful time, as the jasmine is a young plant covered in a fresh blossoms, the mango has soft buds, and it is ready for enjoyment. Okay, say how beautifully Kalidasa compares Shakuntala and Dushyanta to that of Jasmine, water creeper, and the mango tree. Got it. So when Shakuntala confides in her friend Priyamvada about her love for Dushanta, Priyamvada affirms that Shakuntala's attraction to the king is only natural. Because she is a natural human being, right? Though she is born to the celestial nymph Menaka, but still she is living as a simple woman, wanting like wearing a ward of robe like ascetic in who lives in ashram, not in a royal palace. So that's why, after listening to the true love of Shakuntala towards Dushanta, Priyamvada says, "My dear, how lucky you are! Then that your desires at one with nature. And where should a great river wend, if not to the sea? And what plants lush enough for the jasmine to entwine, if not the mango?" See how beautifully Kalidasa puts words into each and every characters to beautify his play. So after marrying King Dushanta is secret, that too in a secret manner, that was called a Gandharva Vivaha with a mutual consent. And when Shakuntala departs from the forest to join her husband in the capital, the trees themselves bless her. Okay, and this is a parting scene, departure scene of Shakuntala from Karma's ashrama, and how the trees also weeps, and they also cry, and they also bless her like it was a tree itself spun this moon white cloth, and that tree used lac to redden her feet, and gods of trees that conjured these jewels had sprouting from branches like fresh men, and especially fresh green shoots. This is a voice in the forest air, even speaks a blessing for Shakuntala's auspicious journey into married life. So that's why I told you that Shakuntala or associated with natural world. This is what we can find in this play. As I told you that Shakuntala too is because even when we see her destiny is there, though she got married to a king Dushanta, but still she had to live again in the hermitage of Maricha, and she is too withered by 6 years of sadness from the effects of Durvasa's curse, and she is portrayed by Kalidasa in this way. Her robes are dusky, drab, her hair a single braid, and her cheeks drawn in by penance. And she is highly grief stricken because from the beginning till the end, she has been, though she is very beautiful, though she is born to a celestial nymph, but still she is leading a very simple life, like an ascetic woman. right? By wearing ropes and by wearing a single knot or single braid on her hair, and her cheeks are drawn by penitence. She is penitent and drawn by penance. And yet, when they meet, especially when both Shakuntala and Dushanta meet at the end of the play, instantly he all of a sudden he recognizes her as he failed to do so when she appeared before him for the first time, right? And in her maiden brightness in the capital, the implication is that her beauty doesn't shine forth in spite of her physical decline, but rather her decline makes her underlying beauty all the more compelling. So what does Kalidasa want to portray here? Though there is he doesn't want to give more preference for physical beauty, but here he is giving more preference for spiritual beauty, that is inner beauty. This is what the distinction he tries to draw between the natural world and the spiritual world, and the natural beauty and the spiritual beauty. So the play's treatment of beauty makes even more sense when it is considered in relation to the play's religious context. In the culturally Hindu world of the play, signs of physical renunciation are understood to reflect detachment from the world. And when people become wants to become monks or ascetics or sannyasis, because they are when they really wanted to renounce all this physical world, and they are really fed up of the crime, what I can say, the things what is happening in and around the world. Right. That's why this is clearly understood according to Hindu world of the play, that because these are all the signs of physical renunciation, which is understood to reflect the detachment from the world. So that's why we can also understand that Shakuntala, why does she want to live in the hermitage? First in the we can see her we meet her in Kanvas ashrama, later in Marichas, right? So that's what Shakuntala's and Dushanta's progression, right? Over the course of the play, from the youthful order reflected in the natural world, and through suffering and separation to mature union, could be thought of as a version of this detachment, but a form of it that's attainable to those who don't spend their entire lives practicing spiritual austerities, which of course includes most of the play, likely what we audience likely to feel. You should understand how in the course of the play we can find from youthful, everything has been reflected from youthful order to the natural world, through suffering and separation, and to a mature union. So this is the distinction of this also constitute the important theme of the play, that is the spiritual world, natural world, and spiritual beauty, and the natural versus natural beauty. So then the play also talks about duty and love, or responsibility and love, or obligations, or whatever we can say. So throughout Shakuntala, we have duty and love are closely intertwined, okay, closely interrelated. This connection is in keeping with the importance of dharma. Dharma means duty in Hindu practice at the time, and dharma along with artha. Artha means material aspects, monetary. So, dharma along with artha and kama, desire, and later moksha. That is what I can say, immortalness, moksha, and which is understood to be one of the primary goals of human existence according to Hindu practice. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, right? So I think Kalidasa has developed this play based on these four duties of human existence, or these are the primary goals of human existence, while the ultimate goal of this existence was to attain moksha, or liberation of the soul, okay, or attainment of the true soul. And the structure of the play from opposition between duty and love during Shakuntala's courtship, and which was failed due to the efforts made to harmonize them in the middle of the play, and to reconciliation between them in the final act. And she had to suffer 6 long years, the separation and the sufferings, everything she had to face in order to find her true lover and in order to unite with him. Right. So this is this these are the important themes we could able to find, and this love and duty are seen as being at odds with each other, as the duty is even used as an excuse to pursue the true love or the alternate love. For example, when Dushyanta first sees Shakuntala in Kanva's ashrama, it is the king sees something incongruous about Shakuntala's devotion to religious duty. And to him, Shakuntala's desirable physical beauty seems based in her life of ascetic striving. So, meanwhile, Shakuntala's first experience of passion seems to her to be very incompatible with her lifelong religious society or lifelong religious piety, as soon as Dushyanta enters into her life. So, soon after Dushyanta reveals himself in the ascetic grove, Shakuntala thinks that, but how can it have happened that simply at the sight of this man, I'm shaken with a passion so at odds with the religious life. So she questions herself, and so far I had led a lead life of an ascetic, but after seeing this man, why my religious life have been shaken, or why I had to face because I'm audible enough. Any problems are you facing now? No, no. Yeah. Then hope you are following the themes what I'm discussing here, and you should also please go through the play and read the text or material study SLMs what you we have given it to you. Then definitely you will get to know what I have taught so far. And though this is a small play, consists of 7 acts, but still it is loaded with so much of meaning, as I have been explaining all these things with you. And see, that's why she is also shaken with a passion, and she also wonders how my religious life has been shaken after seeing this man. So rather transparently, Dushyanta also uses his sacred royal duties, like he is a king, right? His king's responsibility is to protect his kingdom as well as his citizens and his uh, what subjects. But what he does when he sees Shakuntala, right? And with the special care, he what I can say, he discharges his duties as a king, and along with the special care was also given to Shakuntala. Then he tells Shakuntala and her friends that uh, when when he was also listening in his hiding, and he just wanted to listen to Shakuntala about her feelings towards him. And he tells Shakuntala and her friends as that I have been appointed as minister for religious welfare, and he says like that. And in that capacity, I have come to this sacred forest to ensure your rituals are not obstructed by any demons. So I'm here appointed as though I'm a king, I'm also a minister of religious welfare. So I have come to this forest in order to protect your rituals. Okay, so Dushyanta here is not actually connecting duty and love, but rather he is using duty as a lie to pursue love. Okay, and at this point, as described in the stage direction, Shakuntala, she displays all the embarrassment of erotic attraction. And finally, she herself apparently sees through Dushanta's ruse, and at any rate, she is aware that her own religious devotion is more likely to be obstructed, not helped by her attention to this man. So when he says that I'm on my religious duty, and even she also starts pretending like it is my duty to treat the visitors, especially the king of this kingdom who is supporting us, like that. So both of them, they started pretend they are under pretension. They started giving attention, and they started discharging their duties in this way. So before leaving the grove, Dushyanta reflects to himself that suddenly the city doesn't seem so attractive. When he goes back to his kingdom, he after especially after his what I can say encounter with Shakuntala, he started feeling the some missing or something is missing in his world. That's why he says the city does not seem so attractive because without Shakuntala. So the truth is that he himself admits that I cannot forget Shakuntala, and I may not able to get Shakuntala out of my head. So she is dancing in her mind, according to me. So in his mind, that's why he openly he says that the city doesn't seem so attractive because he cannot get Shakuntala out of his mind. So Dushanta's responsibilities of being a king in the capital city no longer appeal to him. Going against the grain of the erotic desire, he is now feeling. So duty and desire, this also forms a very prominent and very basic themes of this play. That's why duty and desire seemingly don't go together, but still Kalidasa is very adept in making these impossible things possible. So in the middle acts of the play, there is a struggle to harmonize love and duty. In Act 2, we could able to find that how Dushyanta is asked to protect the ashram hermitage for a few nights in the sage Kanma's absence, which was actually what he also desired for, to stay with the presence or at least in the closeness of his beloved. So, but no sooner has he agreed to this man, this sage, than a messenger arrives with a competing obligation. That is a request from his mother to participate in a ritual fest in the capital. So there again he saddens like I have to weigh my duty to the ascetics against the request of a reverend parent, and neither can be ignored. And he says that being a father, being the king of this kingdom, and being the son of my parent, I have to obey to both the orders. Or this is both these are the obligations he had to face in his life. And being a king, he has to balance both the things: his personal life as well as his official duty, and everything in a balanced way. So there are prophecies and curses in which also forms the play and which also forms the base of the play. Like throughout Shakuntala, supernatural being like gods and nymphs and powerful utterances like sages' prophecies and curses, and even bodily omens experienced by the main characters are ever present throughout the play. So in fact, none of the main events would take place if it weren't for such supernatural interventions into human events. And such interventions appear to work outside the limits of human plans or intentions, suggesting that in the play they are meant to signal to audiences the inscrutability and inevitability of divine plans. And why these prophecies and curses are inevitable? Because nothing is there in our hands, right? When Durvasa curses Shakuntala, when Priyambada herself goes and pleads him to take away that curse, and the one who curses her, he cannot able to take back that curse. So this is called inevitable. And instead, he says that I can give you the solution to that curse, to lift out the curse. What was the solution? She has to present a signet ring, right? So that's why these prophecies and curses frames the entire play, especially the prophecy that Dushanta will father a world emperor, right? And by whom he himself doesn't know. And this was a prophecy. And when Dushanta refrains from shooting the deer belonging to the hermitage, one of those forest dwelling ascetic voices, the prophetic which says, "Great Lord of the Luna dynasty, may you have a son with all your virtues, destined to rule the world." So Dushanta merely thanks the ascetic at that time and not by leaving that a deer and not thinking too much about it. And in the very beginning of the play itself, he gets a prophecy and he comes to know the prophecy that he is going to be the father of a world emperor. Got it? So you should remember all this, and even concealment and separation. This is also very important. What is the concealment? As I told you that this play is a multi-layered exploration of concealment and separation, and concealment and revelation, which occurs most clearly in the complete hiddenness of Shakuntala and Dushanta from one another during their 6 years separation brought about occurs. And the lesser concealment in the story, such as hidden emotions and the being swallowed by a Rohit fish and people grieve altered appearance and mirror the central one. The secret of the couple's marriage giving away at last to public acknowledgement of their union and their royal sign. And they had to wait for 6 long years to get the true love and get their true partners. Right? So through this complex interplay, Kalidasa, the great Kavi or Mahakavi Kalidasa, he suggests that the truth will always come to light, no matter what hardship seem to obscure the truth along the way. Right? It's true. And as we all believe in that. And we cannot hide the truth for a long time. And in spite of supernatural obstacles, seem to obscure the truth along the way, but still know that truth will always come to light. So this is what happens in these couples' case, that from their initial courtship till their union at the last act 7, which reveals so many things, that concealment and revelation, separation, and even beauty versus desire, and so many things. So many themes, it gets unfolded to the readers or the audience. So Shakuntala's and Dushanta's marriage is initially secret as well. We all know that though it was consensual, but nobody knows. The two are secretly married according to Gandharva Vivaha, which is effectively a declaration of love that is not solemnized by formal vows. And though genuine, this is called the genuine love according to traditional law, their marriage itself therefore has a hidden character, right? So which leads to the ambiguity of the middle part of the play. And then they are separated for a time by Dushanta's royal duties. Again, we could able to find that their reunion, because as I mentioned just now, that we cannot hide truth for a longer time. And this is what about the play. And when finally the true lovers are finally reunited, their familiar appearances are obscured by years of grief and distance and separation. So after 6 years, during which time Shakuntala has lived with her son in the demigod Maricha's ashram, and the Dushanta has been beautifully fighting demons. The two men, especially the two, are so much changed during this span of time, and they don't even recognize each other when they meet easily. And it's sad, especially Shakuntala. Dushanta, after 6 long years, after he sees Shakuntala, he recognizes her, but Shakuntala takes so much time to recognize him, and it is not easy for her to recognize him. It is especially, she is startled by her husband's changed appearance, prompting the king to say, and she says that, "My dear, the cruelty I practiced on you has come full force or full circle. In now it is in this way that I who need to be recognized by you." And Shakuntala too looks different from her beautiful appearance, because now she is a mother of a son, and her robes are dusky drab, I told you, and her hair is single braid, and her cheeks are drawn in by penance. And she has been so pure and constant in that woe of separation, and so callously began. And this is uh, what I can say. This is how Kalidasa displays and describes both the both the lovers at the end of the what I can say, at the end of the play. And finally, the play ends with all's well that ends well. Okay, and there are many characters, as I told you, that Shakuntala, who is the heroine of this play, a beautiful young woman, and she is the daughter of the royal sage and the name Meenaka, and the foster daughter of Kanma, and she lives in an ascetic form in Kanma's hermitage, where she tends to water the sacred trees and loves them like sisters, right? And as I told you, Dushanta, we have Anasuya Premvada, they hatch a plan to convey Shakuntala's love to Dushanta, and later we have Dushanta's Chakuntala and Dushanta's son Sarvadamana. Soon after what Dushanta returns from the capital, he comes to know at the end of the play. And we have minor characters like Durvasas, Marichas, and Kanma. Okay, this is all about the play, and if you have any doubts, you can ask me. Hope this is a very simple play with a simple plot, but loaded with meaning, and you should understand by reading it on your own. Yeah. Any problems? Do you have any queries to ask? Yeah. If you have no doubts, I can wind up my session. Good luck for your exams. Please, all of you, try to attend offline classes, personal contact programs. The dates, the modified dates will announce soon in the official website. Please be in touch with the KSO official website and with your department respectively. Any doubts? Okay. Thank you for your patient listening. Thank you.